This video has been coming for a long time. If you watched my recent video where I showed you all my watercolors, then you know I have a custom Daniel Smith watercolor palette. A palette that I carefully curated with all my favorite colors that I know I'll use. Beautiful, beautiful Daniel Smith watercolor palette that I've had for over a year and haven't used yet. And y'all called me out on it too when you watched that video. You're like, you have to use the Daniel Smith. Why haven't you used the Daniel Smith? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. I've known about them forever. You know, they were classic. It took me forever to jump on the bandwagon to begin with. I started out with 3 colors that I got in a Build Your Own Art Snacks box. And that was 3 years ago. 3 years ago. Did a little illustration with those colors. Beautiful colors. The illustration didn't do them justice, nor did it do me any justice. But it was enough to make me want more. And then I did. I bought a bunch more. And I built a palette. And I didn't use it. And then I showed it in my video, and you told me to use it. And that's what we're doing today. I'm finally using the Daniel Smith watercolors. So let's just jump in. Let's take a look at the colors that I chose. I bought the 5 ml tubes open stock, and I chose colors that I knew that I would use a lot that were also light fast, so that way there, if I wanted to sell my work, I could. There's quinacridone magenta, pyrrole orange, Hansa yellow medium, lemon yellow, sap green, phthalo turquoise, cerulean blue, Prussian blue, French ultramarine, rose of ultramarine, burnt umber, and yellow ochre. And as you know, I like to do a lot of landscape things, like sap green is a must in all my palettes, yellow ochre the same, so I think this is a good range here. And this is what their tubes look like, the patented flower for their branding. It has the light fast information on the side along with the pigment information, and of course the color name is on the front along with where they're made. These were made in Seattle, Washington in the US, and I do like their branding. I think it's really pretty. So as usual with my palettes, I like to write the information of each color on the side of the pan. So I'm writing the color name along with the pigment information and light fast information so that if I run low on a color, I can refill my pan easily because they look a little bit different once they dry in the pan. And then I'm going to just put some in each pan. I'm going to fill it up nice and plump. This is so satisfying, honestly. I have a good time filling pans. It can be really messy though, but it stayed put pretty well. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the rest of my palette, and this is what it looks like. Look how gorgeous those colors are. Truth be told, I actually filled this palette like last year sometime, but I hadn't had the chance to try it all together yet. I had like 3 colors that I had gotten in an art box that I tried, but I haven't tried this palette fully yet. So this is what it looks like when I first filled it. It was a little bit messy, nice and plump and juicy, and then I let them dry out, and they shrunk a lot. They shrunk worse than other colors that I've used, especially this Prussian blue that just pops right out. Like, that bad boy does not want to stay put. So we're gonna see how fast it takes me to use these colors up. But yeah, I was a little surprised by that. I'm going to be working on the Stonehenge Aqua Cold Press Artist panel today, and this is an aluminum panel with cold press paper mounted to it. I have used this on the channel before. I have a video about these. I will link that in the description below if you're curious. But I wanted something nice and solid for this. I am using beautiful paints, and I am working on a reference photo that I've been wanting to paint for a long time. And so I thought it was high time I used the panel again. I'm just going in with my background, and I'm laying in my Hansa yellow because that's going to be like the base color for this entire painting. This is going to be some fall leaves still on the tree hanging in front of a nice bokeh sunshiny background, and so I thought that yellow was a great base color for this. And I took this reference photo years ago, and I've been wanting to paint it for a long time. And I know it's not fall time yet, but I'm ready, okay? I'm going there. In my heart, it is fall, and this is my kickoff for that because you're gonna see probably a lot of fall artwork from me as per usual. Now let's talk a little bit more about these paints. Look how much they spread out in the water. So they obviously use some sort of color disperser in their paints. I looked it up, and it is a synthetic color disperser, so they don't use Oxgall, which means most of their colors are actually vegan friendly other than anything that has the pigment PBK9 in it. So like Ivory Black, Payne's Gray, and Joseph Z's Neutral Gray, I guess, from what the AI overview on Google says. I haven't looked that deeply into it though, so I don't know all the ins and outs of this brand. I just looked on Google and I'm just going with it, baby. I'm normally so much better at research, but I just jumped right in, hence the fact that I forgot to swatch. Anyway, so that's nice to know. They definitely use something that makes them spur out, which makes them beautiful for wet into wet, but at least most of the colors are vegan friendly if that's something that you are concerned about. They are vibrant right out the gate. I don't know, how am I supposed to do this video without gushing? They're Daniel Smith watercolors. Like, I can't really say that this is a review. Y'all know it's good. We all know that Daniel Smith is good paint. So, but I gotta say, I really have been enjoying myself with this piece. And I'm trying very hard not to fall too deeply in love because they are quite pricey, which is fully to be expected from a high quality artist grade watercolor. The problem is I already have a bunch of other high-priced, high-quality watercolors, and so I really don't need to add any more to my collection. Need and want, two different things. Who knows? I have a birthday coming up. I might get gift cards. I might be changing my tune at that point. But I really don't want to because I can't be doing this. I have too many watercolors as it is, and so I was really hoping not to fall in love with these, but I'm really happy with them. All in all, I had a fantastic time. Now, let's talk a little bit about how they shrunk in the pans. I was really surprised by that. I mentioned that in my recent art tour video where I showed you all my watercolors because I have a little series going on where I show you the apeshit amount of art supplies that I own. And I recently did the watercolor addition to that series, and a lot of you were quite frankly appalled by the fact that I hadn't used my Daniel Smith watercolors yet, and so that's why we're doing this today, but I digress. Somebody had mentioned in the comments, and I apologize, I don't remember your screen name right now, but somebody had mentioned in the comments that they typically fill their pans, their Daniel Smith pans, like 3 times to get the perfect amount for a half pan. So like they'll put some in, let it dry, put some more in, let it dry, and put another layer in, I believe, if I read that correctly. So I guess that's kind of the formula to get the perfectly full half pans of Daniel Smith. I don't want to have to do that. Like, when I put core in there, when I put my core watercolors in a half pan, it stays put. It stays full, pretty full. Very little shrinkage. Same with my Holbein. I don't want to have to use 3 times the amount of paint out of my tube to get a half pan of a very expensive watercolor. So that's my kind of thing about it. Now, that being said, when you have a good watercolor, it goes a long way. So when you have something that's really pigmented and disperses in the water really well, it goes further than some other colors might. And Daniel Smith definitely has that down. So it's kind of a toss-up there. Like, I'm a little bit crotchety about the shrinkage, but at the same time, I do feel like they're going to last a long time. Now, granted, this is only a 5x7, so it's not like I'm here doing a full page, but I didn't really use a ton of my colors. Like, I don't feel the need to refill them immediately. And I didn't use a lot of the Prussian blue in this anyways, and that's the one that shrunk the most. But it's just something to keep in mind if you haven't used these paints before. That's my experience with them. I don't know if it's everybody's experience, although the person who said that they have to fill theirs 3 times, I'm assuming that's their experience, or else they wouldn't have that, routine down to begin with. But it's just something to keep in mind. I do think that they will go a long way, even if it looks like it's less in the pan, because they are so pigmented and they wash out nicely. Now, they glaze beautifully, as you can see here, because I'm going to come back and forth in these leaves and in the background and glaze colors. And they're really, really vibrant to begin with, so you don't really need a ton of glazes, but they do layer well to get that saturation if you're looking for more saturation. And I'm able to get fine detail with them as well. So as expected, I was able to do everything that I wanted to be able to do with this piece. They work beautifully wet into wet, but I was also able to come in and get that detail without it getting too crazy on the paper. You know, you use a little bit less water and bada bing, bada boom, you got your details. And I love it. I had a fantastic experience. The other thing is they re-wet really well. So even though they looked like they dried up to smithereens in the pan, they re-wet really, really easily, and they stay wet for a while. I sprayed them down and let it sink in, and I sprayed it again, and I didn't have to spray it a whole ton while I was working. So I thought that that was really great. They kept the moisture really well once you sprayed them down and re-wet really well. And again, that could depend on the climate. It's starting to get a little bit drier here. We're starting to go into fall, but there is still some humidity hanging in the air here in Maine. So it might depend on what climate you live in, but I didn't have any issues with the pans re-wetting and getting the pigment that I needed on my brush. As far as brushes go, I'm using mainly Daler Rowney Aquafine brushes, along with some of the Black Tulip brushes by Zen Art, and they both work really, really well. The Black Tulip ones are more like close to a regular traditional watercolor brush, whereas the Daler Rowney ones are more like I want to say like a Taklon is how they feel. And they both worked great with these paints and on this surface to get the combination of effects that I was looking for. I used a lot of the Black Tulip brushes for the places where I was doing wet into wet, but you can see here I'm also using one for details, and it worked just as well that way. I feel like it holds onto the water a little bit more than the Aquafine brushes do, but both work great. And now I'm at the point where I'm just adding in my detail. These leaves were hanging on by a thread. They are almost dead. So there's a lot of bumps and bruises and crags and polka dots and all kinds of different scarring on these leaves, which I liked because it was fun. I love adding detail. This is the part of the painting that really gets me excited, is adding the details. And it helps those leaves to pop against that background as well. Because I also use the Hansa Yellow as far as in underpainting for the leaves as well, because again, I wanted it to show that the sunlight was coming through the leaves. And I think that that worked really, really well. And I use a lot of my sap green here. I used a lot of my orange as well, but that Pyrrole orange, holy guacamole, that packs a punch. A little goes a long way. So I had to be very careful with how much of that I was using. Super, super pigmented and could easily take over a mixture, no problem. And of course, I brought in my umber and my yellow ochre. You know, clearly it's a fall time piece. I didn't use a lot of blues in this one, but I did bring some in some of the shadow areas. And I also brought my purple in on this leaf, especially in the darkest areas. I used a lot of purple there. I avoided using black because I didn't want it to look too dead. But when I do use any type of black in my artwork, I usually mix it with another color anyway. And so even if I had used it, I would have, you know, layered some on top. Now I'm just kind of coming through and I'm going to be straightening up a lot of my edges. I'm going into the background and I am layering on top and glazing to get certain colors to pop a little bit more. I wanted that sunshine to really, really be evident. And you'll see me come through with my paper towel and my Q-tips to do some lifting and some blending in the background. I want to soften those edges a little bit more. It's a little bit janky right now. It's gone through multiple ugly stages, that background especially, holy moly. But it all comes together in the end. And I will be tightening up my edges of the leaves. I want those to have the harshest edges because they are in the foreground and they are the focal point of the painting. So I'm keeping really soft, loose brush strokes in the background and harsher brush strokes in the foreground to get those leaves to really pop. And at this point, I'm using a little bit less water. When I'm using a liner brush and I'm doing details on the leaves, you're going to see me use a little bit less water so I can get that pigment to stick around a little bit more and so that it doesn't dry as light and blend in too much. And I'll be lifting out a little bit with my Q-tips as well. I always keep those on hand when I'm working. That's how I taught myself to paint with watercolor when I was a kid, was with Q-tips. So they are second nature for me at this point when it comes to watercolors. And then I'm being very gentle when I'm using my Q-tips and the paper towel because I don't want to overwork the surface, though this is a pretty tough surface. The paper alone is really rugged, but then it's mounted to aluminum, so it can handle a lot of layers and, you know, it can handle a lot of abuse. Now to use a fine liner to sign it. That's actually purple, but it looks brown against the yellow, and I think it worked out perfectly. What do you think? This is my piece. Do I love the Daniel Smith watercolors? Absolutely. Am I going to spend more money on them? I hope not. Not anytime soon. I need to resist the urge to buy 8 million of their colors because they have 8 million colors. But I absolutely loved this experience and I loved the colors that I have. You will see me using them in the future. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you love Daniel Smith? Let's talk about it. All right, folks, that's it. I finally did it. I finally used my Daniel Smith paints and I love them. They're amazing. I knew they would be. I hope that you liked this video. I will definitely use them again in the future. It might be a little while because I have some other reviews I need to catch up on. But yeah, you'll be seeing them on the channel in the future. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.